What's up, you beauties? Welcome to an HW Hockey Draft Update episode. I'm your host, Jim Iacovone, and before we get going here, make sure you're subscribed to the fastest growing Flyers YouTube channel in Philadelphia. Remember to like the video, and after we're finished up here, check out hwhockey.net for all of our latest episodes and articles, all in one place. You can find our merch at bonfire.com. Just search HW Hockey. Okay, let's get to our guest, Mr. Mitchell Brown of Elite Prospects. Mitch, must be draft time because you're back on our show. I think it was around this time last year we had you on. What's new, man? How are you?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good. Just wrote I don't even know how many page draft guide, and I'm too scared to check it out. But we have a draft guide out now. It has 400 players in it, grades, analysis, game reports for all 400. I presume, hopefully, if there are no surprises, that just about everyone who gets picked will end up in the guide, and hopefully all the Flyers prospects.
Yeah, and you guys put out a beast of the draft book you guys just put out. I mean, that thing's massive. A lot of good content. If you guys haven't already, make sure you guys are checking out eliteprospects.com. There's so much information. It's where I get most of my information on prospects. And you guys do great stuff on YouTube, Mitch. You want to get the YouTube stuff out there? I really enjoy watching these like monthly prospect thing you guys do where you kind of rank the prospects and whatnot. I get a kick out of watching those.
Yeah, so that's mostly David's wheelhouse there. He's incredible at what he does, breaking down different players, top prospects, and so on. He recently, I think, released a good Yakimchuk video as well, where he's just showing him, I don't know how to say it nicely. I don't know how to say it in a way that like properly does it justice, but just like dangling through everyone, because that's kind of what he does in the offensive creation side of his game. So it's really fun having that type of content available. It's a good gateway to like get into what we're doing. And it's also just a really good way to kind of get a visual of what some of these prospects look like, whether that's the Matvei Michkov videos that we've had over the last couple of years, or whether you're looking at some of the candidates for the Flyers to pick at number 12.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk it up on our show, as much as I want, but until the listeners or viewers actually head over to the YouTube or the site, whatever I say doesn't do it justice. You guys do a hell of a job, and hey, we're happy to get you on. We know you're a busy guy. So just weeks away from another highly anticipated NHL draft and another huge draft for the Flyers, who are supposed to be rebuilding. They sort of overachieved a bit last year by most everyone's standards, and they ended up with 2 first-round picks this year at pick 12 and either 31 or 32. It's looking more like 32, the way the Stanley Cup's been played the first 2 games, but we'll see. So we got you on, and who better to get? Flyers fans are dying to know who you think are legitimate possibilities for the Flyers at pick 12, and what can you tell us about them?
So I think the dream here, right, is that you get a faller. You get one of the top end forwards, especially because of the Cutter Gauthier trade. You're able to get Berkeley Catton, Tisha Ginla, someone in that range. I think at this stage, Berkeley Catton or Consta Helenius are probably the 2 most likely forwards in that tier of the high-end guys to be available. With Catton, it's just all diamondism. It's really easy to see him pairing well with Matvei Michkov over the next few years. Because with Michkov, you're getting a lot of off-puck movement, winning battles along the boards, cutting to the middle, and so on. And with Catton, you're getting a lot of open ice, play driving, dynamic type skill. So they could have a really nice dynamic with each other. And then with Helenius, it's all details, deception, getting open in the right places, give and goes, and so on. So there's a lot of realistically, what the Flyers could get with this 12th overall pick is a forward who could very easily exceed the value that you normally get in that range. It's one of those drafts where there's just not enough spots in the top 10. Realistically, the top 10 goes down to 16, 17, depending on how you want to slice it. So I think the Flyers are in a really good position here. They're probably not going to pick their number 1 guy at this spot, but they're going to get a top end prospect no matter what they do.
Interesting. So, I mean, those are 2 names that, I mean, if the viewers that are watching now have been in the group chat the last 2-3 weeks, the 3 names that we see constantly come up are Helenius, Catton, and Yzerman. So, a lot of people are probably really happy to hear you say Helenius and Catton there. I guess I have a couple questions about these guys. So I like Catton myself. This is a guy that I've watched myself a couple times this season. And like you said, a dynamic player. This is a player that the Flyers need. They need some of that offensively. Um, a guy that can dish the puck, and he can also score himself. So I guess my concern would be, is this a guy that you think can play center in the NHL, or is this a guy that you think teams kind of, keep out on the wing?
So I think with the way the game is moving, the fact that he's going to be center or wing or whatever is going to matter less. It really matters more for faceoffs. And then once you get past that, with how everything now is F1, F2, F3, and then how Catton plays the game, which is a lot of open ice, taking the puck in the middle, attacking with speed. Even if he's on the wing, he's going to naturally end up in those places. Very similar to Clayton Keller in Arizona or Utah, I guess, where so much of what he's doing is getting the puck below the opposition and then attacking with speed through the middle, even though he's lining up on the wing most nights. So I think with him, yes, there's a chance that he's not going to be a full-time center. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's probably the way that it ends up on most teams, with the Flyers having that hole, but on top of that, having the positional flexibility, the versatility in his style of play. And again, we're projecting Catton to be someone who plays with Michkov. And with Michkov, you're also getting another guy who can kind of dominate along the boards, who can also make plays in open ice. So there's kind of that natural cohesion there where I think for the Flyers in particular, whether he ends up at the winger center matters a lot less than it would for another team picking in the top 12.
Okay, that certainly makes a lot of sense. The other player you mentioned, Helenius. This player is a center, right? And pretty solid year in SM Liga. What can you tell us about Helenius for maybe fans who are not so much aware of this player's game, or someone like me who I haven't watched any of Helenius this season?
So he will be a center in the NHL, full stop. There won't be any positional concerns about him, I don't think. Maybe as a little bit of a smaller guy, perhaps. But with Catton, it's a lot of dynamic open ice rushing. With Helenius, it's a lot more of the little plays. He's going to get the puck inside space, delay just long enough to wait for his next teammate to get open, and then hit them with the pass. It's going to be finding space behind the rush, getting open for a quick off-the-catch wrister and scoring a goal. It's the physicality in the offensive zone, not necessarily throwing crushing hits, although we have seen that at times. It's more of how he's going to spin off contact and then throw a backhand pass up into the middle. It's how he's going to get inside the hands in the defensive zone and create that little bit of extra space for himself and his teammates. So you might not get the same level of dynamic offensive upside that you're getting with Catton, but I think realistically he's a long-term middle of the lineup center, and he has that same sort of ability because he has all the details, right? With a lot of times with projection, you're talking about, can this high skill guy add details? But oftentimes it's the detailed guys who add more high skill, and Helenius fits that to a T.
Okay, that's certainly exciting to hear. So you see his ceiling could be, probably a second line center type guy.
Yeah, I think probably top 6, like someone who might not be a clear-cut number 1, but can slide into that role depending on the teammates around him, depending on the fit and the demands of the team.
Sure. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, for someone like me, who's kind of been pumping up Carter Yakimchuk a little bit, would he make sense for the Flyers at 12, do you think? Or these two players you obviously think make more sense, but could Yakimchuk be a possibility there?
I think he would be an incredible fit for what the Flyers are trying to do. And I think realistically, you have to just respect the fact that the Flyers, they said last year they were going to swing big. For the most part, they swung big. They've shown that they can develop players in this archetype before. And Yakimchuk certainly needs a lot of growth. The defensive side, the skating side is not up to an NHL level. But there are a couple of things that work in his favor. One, he plays hard and he plays physical, sometimes going out of his way to do that. But when you have that level of engagement, that means that you're probably going to be able to add the details a little bit easier than other players. And then on the offensive side, he's dynamic. He's electrifying. He can do all sorts of crazy things from the point. He can dangle around guys. He can manipulate their feet and then attack the inside. A lot of it is shooting. So kind of an archetype that you don't normally see translate to the NHL, very much like the kind of walk-in shooter thing. It's kind of been replaced more by playmaking. I think Yakimchuk, he shows the playmaking side and flashes. I think he becomes more of a playmaker in the NHL. And I don't really have any doubt that if he's able to improve his defense, he should become a top pairing level offensive contributor, power play one guy. It's just that you're dealing with magnitudes of certainty. And in a draft, as I said earlier, where there's arguably 17 prospects who fit into the top 10, that someone like Yakimchuk, who in most drafts would probably be a clear-cut top 10 prospect, could be available to them at 12.
Awesome. That's great to hear for someone like me, because that's kind of the guy that I would like to see them draft. So it's good stuff there. And all right, so I guess we haven't really talked a lot about the second pick the Flyers have. It kind of just it's been forgotten about sort of naturally, right? Because everyone's talking about the 12th overall pick, and there's so many guys that can go there, who's going to fall, drop, that we forgot about the Flyers have another first round pick later on in the first round, and there's some talent back there. So this is sort of going to be the first time on our show that we're talking about who could the Flyers take, and who do you think? I mean, is there a player that could drop? Do you have a player in mind? Are they going to get lucky with somebody? Could they reach?
I think it probably depends on what happens with the 12th pick, right? If they get Helenius and Catton, they probably go defense. If they get Yakimchuk or say Stian Solberg, for example, then they might go with a forward. Mm-hmm. But I think if we're looking at potential top end prospects who could be available to them there, Andrew Basha is my number one target. He's dynamic. He has the same sort of dynamic rushing game as Berkeley Catton, where it's a lot of east-west movement, but it's always full speed ahead. He gets to the middle of the rink. He attacks the net. He has the playmaking. His play is kind of pull the defense into him and then slip it back to the trailer. So you're looking at a guy who's going to be able to create offense in the NHL, most likely. And if he doesn't, he has that sort of buzzsaw, high-speed, energetic defensive approach. He engages everyone physically. He's a hard battler. He's a determined defensive player. And so you also have some fallback with him, too. So for me, when I look at Basha, I think he's someone who you could put on your second line. And if it doesn't work out, he's going to be an NHL player regardless. So it's a great high upside pick for the Flyers available. And plus they didn't shy away from taking players in that archetype last year, like Denver Barkey. He's kind of a similar player to him, but bigger, more explosive.
I mean, if you're picking back there and you have guys like this available, if you're swinging for the fences and, you're trying to make, big moves here, this is a player that would make sense from what you described. He's got the upside where maybe he's a middle six guy, and at the very worst, a bottom six guy, which once you start getting to the bottom of the first round, second, third round, you're kind of just looking for these kind of guys, or you should be anyway, high upside type guys.
Absolutely. And on top of that, if they do go the defensive route, there's going to be a mixture of both high upside and certainty. Like Charlie Ellick could very easily be available. He's a 6'3" right shot defenseman who's an above average skater and plays with an intense ferocity, like very violent player. You have Dominic Bedenka, who's kind of in the Ellick mold, maybe a little bit less violence, but maybe has a little bit more puck skills. EJ Emery, who destroyed the combine and is a very intelligent shutdown defensive prospect. And so with the Flyers, they're going to have a lot of options here. And we see it in every draft. There are surprises. There's always top-end guys who slide a couple spots, and then teams regret letting them slide down the board a little bit. And the Flyers are in a really good position to take advantage of that. And then you add in the fact that, again, they have a pretty solid prospect pool, even though they did have to trade their number 2 prospect. They have plenty of versatility up and down the prospect pool. They have guys who can fill a variety of roles. They have lots of positional depth at defense and forward. So they're going to have a lot of freedom to pick who they deem to be the best player available.
That's certainly going to be something to watch for, to see if they go offense. We could be expecting defense with the second pick or vice versa. It's going to be something to watch for, Mitch. So we talked about the 4 or 5 players there. What do you want to promote, man? What do you want to get out? Obviously, you just had the big draft guide come out, Elite Prospects. What else you got?
Yeah, so again, I'm just going to reiterate. I have to do it. We've mentioned it, I think, 4 times now, but the draft guide for sure. Please check that out. It's dirt cheap. It just takes a month subscription to be able to get it. I think it's $12 US a month. And you get the draft guide. You can check out our previous draft guides. And you also get access to EP Ringside, which is where we have longer form, more visual articles on some of these top prospects. I have one on Zane Parekh coming out this week. I mean, Zane for the Flyers, now that would be incredible. I don't know if he's going to get there, but if the Flyers can get him at number 12, that would be something. It would be a great fit. But we also have other ones like coming out. We have one on Bashaw already. We had one on Catton as well. And I think I'm also going to have one on Beckett Seneca, who we didn't talk about, but could very easily be available to the Flyers as sort of this energetic, skilled winger who was a big second half riser.
We talked about him, I think it was last week with Russ came on, Russ Cohen, who does some of the elite prospect stuff with you. And Seneca is not a name, not a guy that I'd really heard of until a few weeks ago. And apparently this kid grew 5 inches in the last 2 years or something like that. And
yeah, he went from 5'10" to 6'3", I think.
That's insane to me, man. So I guess, all these teams see a kid that grew 5 inches in 2 years and getting talked up. Now it'll be interesting to see where he goes. A lot of people are saying, whether the draft goes how they think or whether it goes how they don't think is, a lot of it's dependent on where Seneca goes. But it's going to be a fun draft. It's just going to be fun to watch and see who goes where because, guys that can go 2 or 3, I'm seeing go anywhere as far back as like 6, 7, 8, 9. It's just going to be a fun one to follow.
Absolutely. It's very unusual that because normally at this time we have a general idea of where teams are leaning. We kind of have the reporting to suggest, it's between these 2 guys. These are the guys that they're targeting and so on. We don't have nearly as much of that as normal at this time of year. And it's just so wide open. And it was a defense heavy draft, but then the forwards just kept getting better. And so there's not enough spots in the top 10 anymore. And I think it's going to be one of the most interesting, exciting drafts that we've had in a long time.
Yeah, that's for sure. Mitch, I could talk to you all day, man. I'm going to make this a quick episode. Maybe we can get you back on at some point. We know you're crazy busy this time of year, but I would love to talk draft picks with you again and prospects. So we'll let you run, man. Appreciate you taking the time to come on, and we'll talk to you soon. Great work as always, man. $12 for the draft guide, and you get everything that Mitch talked about. That's a steal. You're not going to find better bang for your buck anywhere out there in terms of NHL prospects and NHL drafts. So thanks again, Mitch, and hopefully talk again soon, man.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Take care. All right, boys and girls, Mitch Brown. You're not going to find better draft guys around. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the episode. Make sure you check out his work at eliteprospects.com. And we're going to wrap this up, make it a quick one. Jack and I will be back tonight with HW Radio episode 40 of season 6, I believe. We'll be talking stay or go. We got a good stay or go segment for you guys tonight. Obviously, we'll be talking NHL Draft, the prospects that Mitch brought up during the episode here. Some big names that could be going to the Flyers at 12. And then once again, some names are now out there for pick 31, 32, whatever it's going to be. But Catton, Helenius, Yakimchuk, let's see. We're only a couple weeks away, boys and girls. It's time to start ramping this stuff up. So I'm going to drop off of this one. And we'll be back tonight at 8 o'clock with Jack. See you guys.